In this video, I'm going to find the shadow prices and reduced costs for the linear programming problem maximize set, which is equals to 5x1 minus 2x2 plus 3x3, subject to the constraints x1 plus 5x2 plus 2x3 is equals to 30, x1 plus 5x2 plus 6x3 less than or equals to 40, the variables x1, x2, x3 greater than or equal to 0. So we looked at this problem previously, and for the first constraint, this one, we said when we have an equal to constraint, we add an artificial variable. So we added an artificial variable and the equation became x1 plus 5x2 plus 2x3 plus a1 equals to 30. This one had a less than or equal to sign, and we added a slack variable s1, and the equation become x1 plus 5x2 plus 6x3 plus s1 is equals to 40. We then went on and used the M technique to solve the problem, and for the final tableau, we had the following table like this one. This is the final tableau that we were having. And what it is saying there is our set is equals to 150, x1 is equals to 30, the solution there, x2 is equals to 0, just because it's not appearing in the rows of the final tableau there. So x2 is 0. x3 is not appearing in the row of the final tableau again, so the x3 is 0. So from this final tableau, we can find our shadow prices and our reduced costs. And to find those shadow prices and reduced costs, we have to look at the coefficients of the objective function, the ones that I've highlighted there. For the shadow price for a particular constraint is the coefficient of the appropriate slack or artificial variable in the objective function of the final tableau. So looking at this constraint here, it has an artificial variable a1. So we need to find its shadow price. So for constraint number 1, since it's having an artificial variable, we look at the coefficient of the artificial variable here, and that coefficient is 105. So what we are having there is the shadow price for constraint number 1 is 105. And for constraint number 2, it had the slack here, the S1. So we'll be looking at where we have the S1 here in the table. The coefficient there on the highlighted part, it's a 0. So we have the shadow price there for constraint number 2 is 0. So those are the shadow prices for constraint 1 and constraint 2. I now move on to reduced cost. When you are looking at a reduced cost, it is the objective coefficient of the variable in the final tableau. So again, we are still looking at the coefficients of the objective function there, but you are now looking at the variables. So for each variable, we would have a reduced cost. So we're looking at the variable x1, the coefficient there in the objective function there is a 0. So the reduced cost for x1 is a 0. Look at x2, the coefficient there is a 27. So the reduced cost of x2 is 27. For x3, we are having the coefficient there is a 7. So the reduced cost there is a 7. So those are the shadow prices and reduced costs. We just read them from the final tableau looking at the coefficients in the objective function.